What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Between the Lines Sports Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Blair, and this is my good buddy, Patrick. Today, we're going live with video for the first time. Still figuring out the whole kinks of podcasting and video and all that stuff. But this week, we'll be talking about first week of college football in the SEC last weekend, and then this upcoming weekend of SEC play and some other big games. Then we'll dive in a little bit to the NFL games coming up this week, starting Thursday with the Chiefs and Lions game. Let's start with the games from last week that we talked about on our last podcast. What did you think about that Florida-Utah game? After we talked about it a lot last week that if Cam Rising played, we definitely thought he was going to win. Utah was going to win, but being that he didn't play it, and they still won kind of convincingly against Florida.
Yeah, I mean, the game kind of went how I thought it would go, with Utah winning, but it being kind of low scoring. It kind of started with a bang with the Utah hitting that 70-yard pass play. And then, I don't know, I guess the story of the game was really Florida making mistakes because they were able to drive the ball pretty effectively, but every time they got into the red zone or got in scoring position, they would make like a key mistake. Like they missed like a 30-yard field goal, and then they had another time where they got Utah stopped, and then their special teams team had two of the same number on the field and gave Utah the ball back, and they went and scored. So I don't know, kind of what you expect with the first game with a bunch of mistakes, but Utah was just able to capitalize, it seemed, on every single mistake Florida made, and then Florida just got in too big of a hole and wasn't able to dig out of it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, if you watched any of the games this past weekend, I think pretty much all the teams, top 10, etc., everybody kind of started out with, those first game hiccups and then, eventually got rolling just how they should.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of deceiving if you look at the stat line because, I mean, Mertz had like 330 yards passing. So it's not like he played a terrible game.
Right.
I mean, some of that was in garbage time, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I don't come away from it thinking that Florida is absolutely horrendous. I mean, it was a tough opening game for sure.
Yeah.
Utah's back-to-back Pac-12 champs. Their defense is really solid. So, I mean, it's still going to have to see about how both teams are going to be. I think Utah obviously is going to be really good again with Cam Rising when he gets back. So, but Florida, they're yet to be determined. We'll see how they develop over the next few weeks.
Yeah. Let's see, Tennessee game. We won convincingly, like we hoped they would. Just kind of started out a little slow, like we just said. The first game hiccups. I've seen a lot of stuff on social media about grading each position or offense and defense, and I've seen a lot of stuff bashing Milton on his gameplay. But I mean, he was like 21 of 30 or something passing the ball, and then on one drive, for 3 straight downs, they threw it, and he didn't make good passes. But the thing is, I'm okay with him making those bad passes as long as they don't go to anybody on the other team. You live to fight another day that way. But again, that was in the first half. We started out slow, got going towards the end of the first half, and then the second half just continued and kind of finished how we thought it would be.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really get anybody that's criticizing him. I mean, first off, he's just you can tell just a different player than he was when he first got here. But if anything, being more encouraged because of the kind of shaky start. I mean, his stat line would look a lot different if Keaton would have caught that deep ball because that would have been 80 more yards, another TD,
exactly.
And he's super reliable. So that was crazy too. But just more encouraged than anything because in the first half he had that one series where he kind of bounced a couple and then missed Keaton over the middle on I guess like a deep post, and it was looking kind of shaky. That was when it was only 7-0. But then after that drive, really, he came out and was dotting it the rest of the game. So I mean, if anything, I'd be more encouraged because that's a time where obviously he knows he's replacing Hendon. He's probably playing with a lot of pressure because he knows people are expecting him to, or at least expecting him to miss on those overthrows. And I'm sure he's heard all the stuff people have said. So I'm more encouraged by how he finished the game because obviously everybody had first game jitters and with the drop and stuff like that. But then he responded really well and finished strong. So like I said, I mean, the opponent wasn't great and we were able to start building some momentum, but I don't understand anybody that's bashing that performance.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, I think one thing that was really exciting to see for us is I think our defense looked a lot better out the gate. We're in the backfield pretty much the whole game. And then our running back room, like our three workhorses, were just pretty much running at will. I think they all had pretty much an equal load. I know Wright was the only one to go over 100 yards, but I mean, if we can run the ball like that with three different guys, we'll be in good shape.
Yeah, I mean, we know we have to kind of temper expectations a little bit with the opponent, but I mean, even with opponents in the past that have been absolutely horrendous, like they've been able to move the ball a little bit and at least be competent on offense. Like it hasn't been shut down like that, and that's against teams that were Group of Five, like Bowling Green and Ball State and stuff like that. So it was very encouraging to see how the
Yeah,
defense played. I mean, with the starters in there, it was pretty much guaranteed that Virginia was not going to pick up a first down. I mean, along with that shaky start,
hmm
I mean, the special teams to begin with, specifically the punter, gave Virginia the ball on Tennessee's side of the field 2 times in a row in the first half, and both times Virginia moved backwards. So I mean, the defense, I
yeah,
mean, was getting off the ball. The defensive line is really encouraging. I mean, a lot of fast twitch guys, some guys that just UT hasn't had the last 10 or 15 years or so, with like James Pierce and Tyler Barron finally developing,
yeah,
and sliding him inside is just a huge mismatch for any interior offensive lineman because he's so quick. So it's really encouraging to see some of those guys really start to put it together. Because last year James Pierce couldn't really get on the field. Obviously, we had Byron Young and some other older guys, but Pierce, I mean, he had 2 sacks in the first 10 or 12 defensive snaps. So it's really impressive to see. And then the guys like Aaron Beasley and the transfer from BYU Peely. I mean, the team speed and the sure tackling
yeah,
is very encouraging. So yeah, I mean that's one takeaway. And like you said, the running game. I mean, if they would ride Jalen Wright like some other teams ride their running back, that guy could run for 1,500 plus yards. I mean, the guy's just a stud. From where
yeah,
he was as like kind of a string bean as a freshman to where he is now, the guy's an NFL running back. So very encouraging to
yeah,
see. And like you said, the running game is going to carry them when they can't throw the ball, which won't be often, but I mean,
yeah.
they can go to that running game when they need to.
Right, exactly. Let's see. North Carolina versus South Carolina game. I thought this one would be a little bit closer than what it was. It was kind of close. I think it was 17-14 at halftime, which, that was kind of expected. I did think North Carolina was going to win. I think they were favored by like 2.5. But, I mean, they pretty much shut down South Carolina's offense the entire second half.
Yeah, I mean, the story coming out of this game, I think, is North Carolina's defensive line and probably South Carolina's offensive line struggling as bad as it did. I mean, they gave up 9 sacks and 16 tackles for loss, which is just ridiculous. Tennessee's defensive line and defense had a good day, and they only had 11 tackles for loss. So, and Virginia had like 14 possessions.
Yeah.
So, um, because what's crazy about it is if you look, Spencer Rattler was still 30 of 39 for like 300 something yards, and that was with no protection, getting sacked 9 times. So, I
Right.
mean, maybe need to give him a little more credit than we have been. I mean, maybe he's really locked in and confident with his receiver connection, but I mean, just he was running for his life, and South Carolina wasn't able to run the ball at all. So that's the biggest story for me is North Carolina's defense that much better, or is South Carolina's offense really that, or offensive line that suspect early on in the season? So, like you said, was surprised it was as one sided as it was, especially in the second half, because South Carolina only kicked a field goal in the second half. So weren't able to put many
Yeah.
points on the board. And so we'll see. Like I said, still first week, but that's my biggest takeaway is North Carolina's defense that much better, or is South Carolina's offensive line that bad?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I mean, we knew Drake May was going to have a good game. He's, probably a top 5 pick if he continues on the track that he left off on this past week and last year. But we'll see. I think they both have some question marks next to him still that we'll figure out as they play more games. Georgia will, or not Georgia, South Carolina will figure out real quick because they have Furman this week and then they go they play Georgia. So hopefully we find out a little bit about both those teams by that point.
Yeah, Georgia and then Mississippi State and then Tennessee. So there aren't many wins on that September schedule.
No, not at all. All right, another one is the Florida State LSU game. We talked about the one from last year on the last episode, kind of hoping that that was going to be how it was, but Florida State just kind of beat them up and down the field the entire night. Almost it seemed they were kind of back and forth like the first quarter and a half, and then it's like a switch flipped, and FSU just ran away with it. LSU didn't look good from that point on. Ball security, they had a couple drop passes that I think really affected how they were moving the ball up and down the field, but um, Florida State's offense looked really good.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Florida State looks really strong. I mean, obviously the transfers they have all over the field with Keon Coleman from Michigan State, and then Jaheim Bell from South Carolina, and I mean Travis obviously coming back and is very experienced and just played really well. He had the one bad decision on the screen pass, but other than that, he played pretty much a flawless game. Um, and I'd kind of been thinking that maybe LSU was a little bit overrated coming into the year. I mean, obviously they finished strong last year, but they also had some pretty bad defeats. So, again, it's a
Yeah.
long season. I mean, it's not a conference game, and Florida State obviously is one of the better teams to start the year. So they could recover just like they did last year. But Florida State looks strong, and we'll have to see how LSU responds. Obviously, they don't have a major test, I don't think, for the next few weeks. I mean, they have to go to Mississippi State. I would expect them to still win that game, but you never know. Mississippi State's pretty veteran. So, like I said, just one game,
Yeah.
but it wasn't a good start. It wasn't the start they were expecting for sure.
Yeah. I think one of the probably the biggest surprise of the weekend for a lot of people, just because it was such a big change in that atmosphere and on that team. But Colorado, they made some noise this past weekend. Like again, they talk about TCU being in the national championship this past year, but it's a different team. They don't have the same quarterback. And again, they were ranked 17th preseason, but how much do we really know about these preseason rankings versus, they lost and then Clemson got drummed and they were a top 10 team. But besides that, Shadur Sanders played a heck of a game. I think he threw over 500 yards. He had four receivers with over 100 yards. He broke all kinds of records, against a Power Five, top 25 team. So I don't know. I definitely got to see them play a few more games to know how good they actually are. I know Sanders and Hunter, they could play anywhere. I mean, that's just the
Mhm.
bottom line. They're doing it against Power Five dudes, and they're studs. Like Hunter doing both ways. I think he had like 110 snaps or something in the entire game. It's ridiculous. Especially he was making plays on both sides of the ball. He had a huge interception, I think, on like the 3 or 5 yard line. Uh, Shortly before that, he defended a pass. He knocked the ball out of the dude's hands that would have been a touchdown. And that game was back and forth at the end also. But I'd like to see them play some more, but they look like they might be the real deal and might get over that 3.5 wins that they were projected at.
Yeah, I mean, let's see if they can. I don't know. First week's weird. TCU had lost a lot. They only returned 3 of their 22 starters from that team last year. So, not discrediting. I'm really impressed with how they were able to put that together so quickly because I have to admit I was pretty skeptical um, if that would work. Not that they didn't have good players, but just meshing 86 new guys in one short off season has got to be difficult. But hats off. They played amazing. I mean, like you said, Travis Hunter, I think he was the first player to have a receiving touch. Maybe it was either a receiving touchdown or 100 yards receiving and a pick in the same game since like 1960 something, I think. Because obviously, there's just not many guys that are playing both ways now. I
Yeah,
mean, Charles Woodson's one
yeah,
that comes to mind, but I don't think he even had a pick or like a massive receiving performance in the same game like that. So, guy is the real deal. He can play, and then obviously, Shadur Sanders is the real deal too. So, like you said, I mean, I'm gonna pump the brakes on their going undefeated and stuff like that. Like maybe some people are talking about, but they're definitely the real deal, and they're gonna way fly over their win total of 3. So
yeah,
looking forward to seeing that game with Nebraska this week. Obviously, I have a kind of an affinity for Nebraska. I like Nebraska, so just some ties to them, and I like watching them. So I'll really be tuned into this game this week. I don't know. Something tells me that they're going to struggle. Nebraska has a solid defense. I think Rule's a good coach. Obviously, Nebraska has been pretty snake bitten recently, losing a ton of one possession games over the last decade. But something just tells me that's going to
yeah,
be a really good game. I think a lot of people are going to expect now for Colorado to kind of blow them out, and I just don't think that's going to be the case. But like you said, really good start for the prime era there, and then there were some great sound bites after the game too. So it's going to be interesting the whole time he's there
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, I mean, counting the Nebraska game, they've got some other tough games. They've got Oregon, who's number 13 right now, USC, who's number 6. They play UCLA, they play Oregon State, who's number 16, and then they finish the year with Utah, who we were just talking about. They're ranked 12th. So, I mean,
Yeah, it's
they
a
don't have
tough
a
schedule
cupcake
for sure.
schedule by any.
Yeah, that's a tough schedule for especially Pac-12. I think they play like all five of the top odds to win the conference going into the year. So it's a difficult schedule.
Yeah. Hmm. All
But
right, I
then did
think
you
our
also say something
last.
about the Clemson game?
Yeah, that's what I was about to go to.
Okay,
The
okay.
last thing on the this past week was the Clemson. I think we were talking about it in a group text with some buddies about this might be their downfall. Klubnik didn't look good. They didn't look good in any aspect of that game. I had bet on Duke to actually cover the 12.5 points they were getting, but I mean, I don't know. They got some work to do. That's for sure. I don't really know how to put it into words. I didn't really expect it to happen. I thought they would beat Duke, but not by more than 2 touchdowns. So they're not looking good.
Yeah, I mean, they've been on the down cycle for a little bit now, I think. I mean, ever since Lawrence left in 2021, they had an okay year for them. They went 9-3, won their bowl game, so they finished 10-3 last year. They had a pretty strong season, but there was quarterback controversy basically the whole year. And then their last 3 games, they get beat at home by South Carolina, dominated by Tennessee without Hendon Hooker, and then this game where they're only able to score 7 points. Now, I think Duke's a solid team, but Clemson, I mean, they had 56 4 and 5 stars on their team, and Duke had 2. So there's some kind of disconnect or something going on, and maybe the Dabo magic or the Dabo cult mentality is kind of wearing off. I mean, there was a clip there in the second half last night where Klubnik's running off the field, and Dabo sticks his hand out, and Klubnik kind of just ignores him. And then just some of the stuff Dabo said after the game, because they had brought in Garrett Riley this offseason to run that high-paced TCU offense, and that didn't look like TCU's offense last night. And then after the game, Dabo's asked something about the offense, and he's like, "Well, he came in to run the Clemson offense." It's like, why would you hire this guy to come in and run an offense that you're predetermined for him? So there's just some strange stuff going on with them, and it just seems that they've been at the top for so long, and he really lucked out with 2 great quarterbacks with Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence back to back. That I don't know, maybe some of
Yeah,
that pixie dust he has is kind of going away. I mean, I still think they'll win their fair share of games this year. They're still very talented, but I don't see them winning or
yeah,
competing for another national championship right now as it sits. So
no,
I just think they're kind of cycling down.
yeah, I agree with you. I mean, like you said, when your quarterback is a question mark, it's kind of hard to win games at any level, and especially when you've been at the top for so long, it's hard to kind of figure it out once you don't have that position covered when you have for so many years in the past.
Yeah, and I mean, just like the way they lost last night, like every time it kind of looked like maybe Clemson was going to take control or things were going their way, they fumbled. I think they had a turnover on the 1 yard line, the 4 yard line, and a missed field goal from the 7. I mean, that's a team that's a top 10 team. I mean, you just don't win championships doing stuff like that. I mean, so yeah, I just like I said, I still think they'll win their fair share of games. Still very talented, but I don't see them competing for a championship or the national championship again with the current construct.
Yeah, yeah, I'm with you. All right, let's roll into week 2 in the SEC. I think first up on our slate is the Austin P versus Tennessee game. Really, not too much to say about it. Should handle business. Should win big. I'd like to see us throw the ball a good bit. Get Milton and the receivers a little more comfortable in a game time setting, and but we can obviously run the ball. It's not a big issue, but like to see the defense kind of pick up where they left off from this past week. Running backs, keep going forward as way they are. But yeah, I'd just like to see the consistency more with the passing game this week.
Yeah, I mean Tennessee's going to win the game. There's just a couple things like number one, no injuries. That's what you want in this game. No injuries
Yeah.
because after this week it's going to be a grind. And number two, Nico to play some time with the starters. So take care of business.
Yeah.
Don't turn the ball over. Don't do dumb stuff to where Joe's having to be out there late into the third quarter, into the fourth quarter. not because the game's in question, but because we're only up by 21 as opposed to like 35 or 42 where Nico can get a bunch of snaps. Because, I mean, that's the most important thing. There's no backup behind Joe other than Nico. I mean, we have Gaston Moore who knows the offense, but he obviously is not going to run it at the same click as Nico or Joe. So we need Nico to get some experience and be ready in case Joe were to get hurt. Because,
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
can
last
happen.
year
Last year.
Hendon got hurt. Joe had played some valuable time backing up because we've been ahead so much in so many games. So when he came in, we didn't really skip a beat because he was ready. He had been playing with those guys.
Yeah.
So this might be the last time for a while that Nico will get a chance to play because the UTSA is one of our non-conference games, and they didn't look strong against Houston this weekend. But I mean, they're still a pretty good team, so you don't know if you're going to get up by enough to let him play. And same thing with UConn. So this might be the last time for a while Nico gets to play. So need to get up enough so we can start playing him and get some other guys some experience too. So no injuries and let Nico play a little bit is the keys this weekend for me.
Yeah, those reps are super valuable, like you said. So, all right, next one up is Vandy at Wake. I think Wake should handle business. I'd like to see. I'm kind of eager to see how Vandy plays against a decent opponent. I think Wake's. I think you wrote down that they were favored by like 10.5.
Yeah,
So I don't know.
what
I don't have too
Wake
much
didn't
on that
look
one,
great.
honestly.
Wake didn't look great against
Yeah.
Elon the other night. They opened up on Thursday, and I think they won by like maybe 20, but they didn't look great. Obviously, they're adjusting to life after Sam Hartman, who's obviously a great quarterback, as we can see with him playing with Notre Dame. But Vandy, I don't know. I was expecting them to just be stronger out of the gate. They played okay against Hawaii, but they let them back into that game. And then the other night against Alabama and A&M, they were ahead like 19-10 with like 7 minutes left in the third quarter. And Alabama A&M is not a powerhouse in the FCS. So I was just, I mean, I don't know. Not that I ever have high expectations for Vandy or root for them. I was expecting them to maybe be a little stronger to start this year just because they had been building. And I mean, they're 2-0. They've gotten the job done. They ended up pulling away from A&M the other night, but I don't know. It just hasn't looked as smooth as I was expect. So I really don't know what to feel about this game. I feel like it's going to be close. I feel like Wake will win, but I don't know. I think it'll be a competitive game because I think Wake has lost a lot, and I do think Vandy is maybe a little better than they've shown. So I would definitely pick Wake to win, but I'm expecting it to be competitive.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, truthfully, as long as Vandy doesn't win, I don't care how that game goes. But like you said, we'll see a little bit more about both of them.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
kind of figure it out. All right, next one is Ball State at Kentucky.
Ball State
Or
at
no,
Georgia.
Ball State at Georgia. Sorry, I was looking at that wrong. That's an 8
Next,
o'clock game.
next.
Yeah.
We're not
Okay.
talking about that.
Eastern
Although
Kentucky.
Georgia did look kind of suspect against UT Martin. They struggled out of the gate. Um, I don't know. Carson Beck obviously hasn't had that much meaningful playing time, but I mean they were only up 17-0 against UT Martin, who isn't that strong. Again, there's plenty of things people can
Yeah.
say. They aren't motivated. I mean, they're playing a team that they know they're going to kill. So obviously, I mean, they're still Georgia. They're loaded, but I don't know. Last year they
Yeah.
would have taken care of business a little easier. So
Yeah.
yeah, I
I
mean,
mean, like you've said it several times that Stetson Bennett was the secret sauce, essentially, to them being successful. Which
yeah, I
they're
mean, let's
loaded
just
with
be
talent,
honest.
like
All
you
right, you
said.
take
But
Stetson Bennett, take Stetson Bennett from last year's Georgia team and put him on last year's Tennessee team. They ain't going 11-2. I'm just being honest. Like he's good, okay, but Georgia's so loaded that a guy that's just a little bit of a playmaker like that can kind of run around and do his thing. I mean, it's just so he was what they needed. We'll see if
yeah,
Beck can turn into that. But oh no, we'll see. Their schedule, obviously, for the talent level they have, isn't very challenging for a while. So who knows? I mean, they might come out and dominate 77-0 this week and look like old. But they kind of got off to a slower start than they've been getting off to in that game. But we've already talked
yeah.
about that enough. Let's move on.
All right, Eastern Kentucky at Kentucky.
Kill.
I don't know really anything about Eastern Kentucky, so I think Kentucky will
They're
handle
not good.
business, but as they should. All right, next one. Ole Miss at Tulane. This one's actually a good game. I think they're both ranked in the top 25, and it's at Tulane. So I think that'll throw a wrench in there because I think if it was at Ole Miss, I would be very confident they would win. Just the atmosphere being at home, but this one could be a nail biter. Truthfully, Tulane. I watched Tulane a good bit last year because they were ranked and they're good.
No, Tulane's good. They got their quarterback back. They lost their running back, that Tyjae Spears guy that was so good to the Titans, but they
Yeah,
got a lot of guys back, and their
Titans,
quarterback
definitely.
Michael Pratt's back. So this is a big game for the American Conference and the Group of Five conferences because, to me, and this is kind of something that I've heard over the summer, but it makes sense. I mean, this is probably the Group of Fives team that has a chance to make it to a BCS bowl or a New Year's Six bowl, or kind of an if there was ever going to be another Cinderella to get in, this is the team because if they win this game, I mean, their schedule the rest of the way is pretty manageable. Now, obviously, lots of things can happen, injuries and things like that, but Tulane is solid,
Yeah.
and if they win this game, they could run it. Although, with that being said, I expect Ole Miss looked really strong the other day. I know they were playing Mercer, but still, with Kiffin there, their offense has been a well-oiled machine. So, barring some turnovers or some crazy stuff happening, I would expect this to be a competitive game and Ole Miss win. But on the road, like you said, you never know what's going to happen. But I do think it's kind of an underrated game, even though they're both rated in the top 25 this week. This is going to be a good game this weekend, I think.
Yeah, and I just look at Tulane's schedule. They should handle business the rest of the way after this one. Should, quote unquote. So, um, I'll definitely be tuning into this one before the Tennessee game starts. Next one, Texas A&M at Miami. I think this is another good game. This one, I don't know. I watched Miami a little bit this past weekend. I know Texas A&M is going to be good, but I could see this one being a pretty good game as well.
Yeah, I mean, kind of a game of unknowns. This game last year was kind of not really a snoozer, but just not much happened. My A&M won like 17-9, I think, and it was the week after both teams had lost. Well, no, I think Miami lost to Middle Tennessee later in the year, but this was the week after A&M had lost to App State, so it was kind of a lot of the steam fell off of this game. This year, I think
Yeah,
both teams obviously have a lot higher hopes. I mean, Texas A&M looked really good. Now, granted, it was New Mexico, but last year they opened up with Sam Houston, and they struggled mightily for a while. So their offense looked really strong. Connor Wegman looks like he's really developed and is going to be a problem in the SEC. So interested to see how they play on the road at Miami. Granted, I didn't watch much of that Miami game. I know they beat Miami of Ohio 38-3. Honestly, I was watching the Louisville Georgia Tech game on Friday night. So, but I do expect this to be competitive. I think A&M's favored by like 4. So, I mean, that kind of tends to make you think that it's going to be a very competitive, close game. And is A&M going to be able to put this together this year? Are they going to be able to take the next step and click? Because we know they're super talented,
yeah,
but this is the kind of game last year where they would be expected to go in and play well and lay an egg. So this is kind of a game of unknowns for me. I really don't know which way to go, but definitely excited to see how it plays out.
yeah. Did you watch much of the Texas A&M game this past weekend?
Yeah, I watched a little bit of it. First
Did it
few
seem
drives,
like
and then I flipped it
Jimbo
over.
was relieving the play calling duty or no?
I mean, not really. Can't really tell from watching, but I do think that some of the concepts and the routes and the plays they were running were a little different. Now, I do think that has a lot to do
Yeah,
with Wegman too. I mean, just he's a really good player, very confident, very decisive with where he's going with the ball, and again, New Mexico. But yeah, I think that
yeah,
he's turned it over a little bit. It's kind of like I mean, like Heupel. I mean, he's never going to be completely out of the play calling, but I think he's willing
right.
to turn it over a little bit. I'm sure they're consoling over there, but he's going to have to change a little bit because they're paying Petrino big money, so there's no way he's just sitting in there to do nothing.
Yeah, exactly. All right, next one is Texas at Alabama. This was a good game last year. I can see it kind of being the same way. I think Alabama's actually favored by a touchdown. I think that's a little bit much, especially in a game like this. I watched a little bit of Texas play this last week. They didn't look real great. Kind of hard to tell if Alabama looked good or not because they're playing MTSU. But Texas played Rice, so another one. But they didn't look too hot at the start. But again, we talked about it. A lot of teams kind of started out that way, and I don't know. I don't know if Alabama covers the 7. I could see Alabama winning just if they run the ball how they did this past week. But I expect it to be close.
Yeah, I think it'll be a competitive game. I mean, I think with Texas, they probably, I mean, they remember that game from last year, and they were probably not sleepwalking, but I mean,
Should have
they
won.
knew what game was coming this week. So, like you said, I expect it to be
Yeah.
competitive. I mean, Texas is definitely going to challenge Alabama's defense. They've got some really strong receivers. I mean, Xavier Worthy. They've got the transfer from Georgia, A.D. Mitchell. Ewers has definitely got a lot of experience. They're having to replace their 2 stud running backs from last year, but they have another guy that's back there that's really good. So this is definitely going to put some stress on Alabama's defense and see how strong they are, because last year we know that was a unit that kind of struggled. And then Alabama's offense is kind of hard to make much of what happened. I mean, Jalen Milroe is a phenomenal athlete, and he can definitely run. I mean, he is trouble in the open field. I don't know how much you can trust his
Yeah.
passing yet. I want to see him against a pretty decent defense with a pass rush that can get to him, and see if he's able to make some accurate throws and hit guys in stride. Um, like it's kind of like the Texas A&M Miami game, just a little higher level. This game is kind of like a game of unknowns, and let's see what happens, because this obviously is a huge game. You've got all the national shows going there: College Game Day, SEC Nation, Dave Portnoy shows going there, Josh Pate shows going there. So
Yeah.
it's going to be the talk of the weekend for sure. So hopefully it lives up to the hype.
Yeah. All right, next one's MTSU at Missouri. Not too much to say about that. I think Missouri's favored by 3 touchdowns or so.
Missouri will cover.
Um, yeah, MTSU got throttled by Alabama, so I'm not really looking forward to that. Then we have Grambling at LSU. LSU should win. Hopefully, they, for their sake, they can have kind of a bounce back week and handle business how they should against Grambling. But we'll see.
Yeah, if they
I
don't
don't know
win
if you
that
have anything to
game,
say about it.
they don't win that game, Brian Kelly is not the coach next week. I'm just letting you know. So they better win that game.
Yeah.
Grambling's absolutely horrendous.
Oh my god.
I'm
All
just
right.
being
Then after
honest. I
that
mean,
is McNeese at Florida. Um, Florida should handle business. I think
same thing.
they'll have
If
a bounce
Florida
back
loses
week.
to McNeese, Billy Napier's out of there. All right. I'm just
Yeah.
being honest. I mean, these
Yeah.
are kind of like feel good
Huh?
games. I mean, LSU is at Mississippi State next week. Florida's got Tennessee coming in next week. Like they gotta get their confidence going both. So I expect huge wins for both. Get some
Yeah.
backups playing time, get the feel good going. I mean, it's kind of like Tennessee this week. Just you got to develop some depth.
Yeah. All right. Next one's Arizona at Mississippi State. I think Mississippi State's favored by 10. I think they should cover that. I think they're a good team this year as well. Arizona hasn't been much to talk about over the last few years, so I think they'll handle business.
Yeah, I'll keep an eye on this one though, because Arizona did look decent. I mean, they played Northern Arizona. This is like the same theme with a lot of the teams we've talked about. They've played a terrible team, but they 38-3 played pretty good defense. They blocked a kick and ran it back for a touchdown. So they had a pretty solid start. And then Mississippi State ended up winning pretty big, but again, kind of a slow start again against Southeast Louisiana. So interested to see how this goes. Mississippi State dominated them out there last year. Arizona kind of developed as the season went on. They ended up having a huge win at UCLA down the stretch last year. They kind of knocked UCLA out of any consideration for sneaking in the Pac-12 championship. So I think I think Mississippi State will end up winning, but I think this will be a competitive game at least for a bit, because I think Arizona's much improved.
Yeah, yeah, I could see that. Next one is Florida State, or not Florida State, Furman at South Carolina. You think South Carolina's gonna have a bounce back week also?
Yes, I was wanting South Carolina to somehow be 4-0 when they came to Knoxville, because I just wanted to hear Beamer keep running his mouth and just watch Tennessee rip him apart from the inside,
I
because that's
don't know
what's going to
if
happen. But
that.
unfortunately,
Yeah,
Little Beamer couldn't make that happen. But yeah, they're going to win this game pretty handily. Like I said, I mean, when Rattler had time, he was very accurate, and I mean, he put up a great game, especially considering the circumstances. Now, a lot of that obviously was with North Carolina playing bend but don't break defense, but I
right.
expect South Carolina to win pretty easily.
All right, next one is Auburn at Cal. This will be an interesting game. Kind of their first test with Freeze down there. They looked good this past weekend. They, running that high scoring offense that he normally takes with him. Um, I think this could be interesting. I think Auburn's favored to win by a touchdown, but um, I don't know.
I'm taking
We'll
Cal in this
see.
game.
Are
Cal
you
had a
actually?
very tricky opener, yeah, to win. Cal had a very tricky opener at North Texas, who has been no slouch the last few years. I mean, they haven't been competing for a high bowl game, but they've been going to a bowl. And just a tricky opener, and Cal absolutely dominated that game. I think Justin Wilcox, who is a former DC at Tennessee and has that job at Cal,
Yeah.
he's fighting for his job this year, and they've had some sneaky decent teams while he's been out there. I think this may be his 5th year. They've had some sneaky decent teams, and I don't know, long road trip, late night game. They're having to sit in the hotel and wait all day, 10:30 time, or I guess a 9:30 local start for Auburn. I don't know. I just they played well this opening weekend. They played UMass, so I expect Cal. I think Cal's going to win this game, and if they don't win, it's going to be super competitive. I mean, I think this is going to be a big test, and
Yeah.
I don't know.
Interesting.
I don't think Auburn is very good still, so we'll see. But
Didn't see that one.
I like Cal.
Yeah. Yeah.
hmm There you go. There's for
Interesting.
your betting when you ask me
Didn't
this
expect that
weekend.
one. Yeah. All right. So some other bigger games on our slate: Notre Dame at NC State. Um, if Notre Dame plays like they did the past, so far this year, I think they'll be all right. They'll handle it. But NC State didn't look bad this past weekend either, so it might actually be a decent watchable game. I don't know how many people watched that Notre Dame game against Navy, but God, it was brutal. I can't watch
Yeah,
them again.
I like Notre Dame this year. I mean, with adding Sam Hartman, he's just such a great, poised, experienced leader. Puts the ball where it's supposed to go, takes care of it. They've got a great running game with Notre Dame. We know they've got some high level athletes. Their defense is always solid. So I think this game could be a really fast game. I think both teams really like to run the ball, and with the new running clock
Yeah.
rules, this could be a really fast game. NC State had a really difficult test at UConn to start the season. I mean, UConn's no slouch under
Mhm.
Moore. Last year, he got them to a bowl game in his first year after they had won like 3 games the last 3 years combined. So they've got a much better team at UConn, and NC State was able to weather the storm and win that game. And probably a tougher game than either game that Notre Dame's played so far. So kind of common theme this weekend with the game of unknowns, both two teams that are decent playing each other. We'll see what happens, but yeah, it's definitely one I'm looking forward to watching because the last time they played was 2016 at NC State, and it was when that hurricane was coming through. Can't remember, maybe Matthew,
Yeah.
and the game was
Yeah.
played in like a mud bowl, and
And
no, and North Carolina State won 10 to
right.
3. So I remember that with being a fun game to watch. Obviously, not going to be the same conditions this week, but I think it'll be
Right.
telling towards both team seasons.
Yeah. Next one on here is Nebraska at Colorado. We kind of talked about this one already. You have anything else you want to say on it?
No, just interested to see how Nebraska responds after that tough loss and how Colorado, if they're able to stay level headed after such a big win, because obviously everybody's talking them up this week. So are they able to handle expectations or what happens? I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. Another one, our rivalry game already, Iowa State. I was we talked about Iowa. I think on the last one, you kind of expect them to be sneaky good this year. Which I mean, they're always pretty decent, but I feel like every game I ever watch them play, it's either they're blowing some FCS team out, or they're winning 17-14 or 17-13, or they win the game 20-19. Just always have like really close games. But I mean, I just feel like that's Big Ten football in a nutshell, unless you're watching Ohio State or Penn State play somebody.
Yeah, I mean, they kind of have a style where they just like slugfest, get up and sit on you, keeping you just far enough away where you can't come back. Kind of what they did this Saturday. They
Yeah.
beat Utah State 24-14, but it was never in doubt. I mean, this game is kind of, I don't know. It's always a slugfest. Like it's like 17-13, 20-17 in overtime. They're both just hard nosed, don't miss tackles, run the football type teams. I really don't know which way to go with this. If it was at Iowa, I would say Iowa, but at Iowa State, it's just
Yeah,
I don't know where to go. I think it'll be 17 to
atmosphere.
14, and one of them will win.
Yeah, yeah. Let's hope so. Let's hope somebody
Yeah,
wins.
I don't know which one because it's just like every year they just play like the same game. They just beat each other
Yeah,
up, and one team makes a mistake, and the other team capitalizes at the end. So we'll see what happens. Iowa needs it for sure because, they kind of have that thing with Ferentz kid this year. Ferentz kid has been the OC for a number of years now, but now they kind of have this thing in his contract this year where at the end of the year, the offense either has to average at least 25 points or 350 yards a game, or he's out of there. So the first game of the year, they only scored 24, so not off to a great start for the average. But we'll see how that
yeah,
develops. Are they really going to fire him if they go not 10-2 and they average 23 points a game? Probably not.
right.
But
Yeah,
interesting storyline to keep up with.
yeah. All right, next one is Oregon at Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech dropped one to Wyoming this past week. I think they went to overtime, right?
Yeah,
I think I
double
saw that
OT,
on highlights
crazy game.
in that game. I saw it on highlights the day after. But Oregon, they look good in their opener.
Yeah, they scored
Yeah,
81.
yeah,
Jesus,
I mean they played Portland State, but
that's like me on NCAA football against you.
yeah, huh?
Oh my god.
But I
But
mean,
yeah,
not too much to
I
say.
this one was one that a lot of people were kind of talking about in the offseason because Texas Tech was like a sneaky pick to win the Big 12 because they are solid. But they open up at Wyoming, doing themselves no favor. There's like a hour and 40-minute lightning delay to get the game started, and then they're up 17-0 or 17-3 at halftime, and then they just kind of, I mean, just just make a ton of mistakes in the second half and barely get it overtime, and then they aren't able to finish it in overtime. So definitely a tough loss, but I would still expect this game to be pretty close. Texas Tech at home, that's a tough place to play. Crazy stuff happens there. And Oregon, they got a great offense, but let's see what they look like in a real test here.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be putting up 81 this week.
Yeah,
So,
that's a lot.
all right, I think our last one for college football is Wisconsin at Washington State. Wisconsin's ranked 19th. They're favored by 6.5. I watched both of them play this past weekend. I think they both look pretty good. Obviously competition plays into um, that display, but I think this actually could be a good game. I do see Wisconsin winning, but I think first half will be kind of rocky a little bit, playing on the road. Washington State's, a different environment. I don't know how much. I know you know pretty much a lot about all these different schools, but people out there, Washington State fans, they're some of the most loyal fans there are. They're kind of looked over a lot of the time. But who was that quarterback they had a couple years ago? Was it Minshew?
Who, Washington State? Yeah, Gardner
Right.
Minshew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When he was there and they were really good. Um,
hmm
they got on the map with a lot of people, but I think it could be a good game. I do see Wisconsin winning though.
See, I like Washington State. They won this game last year in kind of a
Mm.
uncharacteristic Washington State game. They won, I think it was 17-14 at Wisconsin, and it was just kind of
Yeah.
Wisconsin made a ton of mistakes, and that game was kind of the beginning of the end for Paul Chryst. This game, I just see Washington State and Oregon State both having really good seasons this year. They're kind of motivated by being left behind because they're the two teams in the Pac-12 that they're getting screwed in all this, and they're two of the teams that have a couple of the better teams, especially in the Northwest part of that league. So I like Washington State. They got a really athletic quarterback with Cam Ward. They absolutely destroyed Colorado State at Colorado State, which is a place where a lot of people have slipped up in similar games, and they won like 50-24. So they played really strong,
Yeah.
and I don't know. Wisconsin looked decent, but there's just a lot of new pieces they're trying to fit in there, and they're running a different offense than they've ran ever. And Washington State's a little bit further along with their program, so I kind of like Washington State in this game. I could see it going either way, but just being at home, I kind of like them to take this one. I think, like I said, I think both of those two programs are going to play motivated this year just by what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm with you. All right, rolling over into NFL. Week one, start of the NFL season. We're both big into fantasy football. I think a lot of people that are just fans of football get drawn into the NFL based on fantasy and being able to watch Red Zone because like if the Steelers aren't on, I'm watching Red Zone. You get to see all the top plays and everything all happen simultaneously, switching from game to game. I think that's one thing that differs from college. There's a bunch of Tennessee fans who don't watch any other games besides Tennessee unless there's a big game like the Florida State LSU game on. Um, whereas we watch a lot of different games, but NFL, I feel like there's people watch whoever Monday night, Thursday night, Sunday night, all day Sunday. Um, First game of the year is the Chiefs at the Lions. Chiefs opened up, I think, as a 7-point favorite, and then recently it was a 6.5 point, and now it's actually down to 5 because Travis Kelce got hurt today in practice. First time he's been injured and to possibly miss a game since his rookie year, which was in 2013. If he doesn't play, I'm gonna tell you right now, Lions are gonna win.
Nah, he's playing. He'll play.
Maybe, but if he doesn't play, I got the Lions winning for sure.
Nah, they're not ready for that. They're not ready for
safety
that.
blanket.
Come on. They're pretty
winning
good,
Travis
but not beating the Chiefs. They got other players.
I mean, yeah, they got Mahomes. That's all
Is
you
Frank
really
Clark
need.
playing?
Who?
What is his name? Chris Jones. Is Chris Jones playing?
No, he's not playing either. He's still holding out.
Jesus.
I'm telling you, if he doesn't play, those two guys don't play, the Lions are going to win the game.
We'll see.
So as soon as I get that up about Kelce, I'll be putting money on one team or another.
He'll play.
But
I need him to play.
Yeah, so do I. Fantasy football.
That's my analysis for this game. Is Travis Kelce will play. There's my analysis. There you go. Patrick Mahomes is going to sling that pea all over the place.
Oh, yeah, he is.
He's got Kadarius Toney down there, Sky Moore.
9 catches. Yeah, but they're no Travis Kelce or Tyreek Hill, I'll tell you that. But we'll see. We'll see how the injury report plays tomorrow. All right, next one up is Steelers versus 49ers. Yeah. Next one is Steelers versus 49ers in Pittsburgh. This is the first game as long as I can remember that the Steelers opened up at home. I listened to Ben Roethlisberger's podcast. He was talking about it, that he couldn't even remember the last time he had a home opener for the first game of the year, during his career with Pittsburgh. But 49ers are favored by 2.5. Right now it's looking like Kittle is probably not going to play. And then Bosa, he's still holding out on the contract talks. But I've heard a lot of things about him being kind of a last-minute deal. Maybe Thursday or Friday he'll get something in. But, again, he hasn't been practicing and stuff. Game speed's a lot different than practice. But either way, regardless if they play or not, I think we do win. I think we're improved a lot on offense. I think our offense depends on the line and Kenny Pickett. But our defense is going to be stout. We should have arguably the best defense in the league, but we'll definitely be top 3 pending any injuries. But I like us to win either way. I'm just curious to see, we saw preseason, but is Kenny Pickett going to take that next step? They keep comparing him to, Joe Burrow's rookie year. He got hurt, obviously, but, they were rocky, and then next year they blew up. So I'm hoping he can take that similar step.
All I'm going to say is, remember when I was telling you Kenny Pickett was going to be good, and you said, nah. Told you this guy's going to be good. I mean, how good, I don't know, but he's solid. He's solid.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I'm wrong. Either way, but, I'd take him on my team any day, just seeing how he doesn't take crap from anybody. I don't know if you watched the Bills game last year. They were losing big. It was like the final couple minutes of the game. Dude took a shot low at his legs, and his leg got rolled up on. Looked bad. Looked like he tore some crap, but he got up, ready to fight. So I'll take a guy like that any day of the week.
Yeah, I mean, both teams' defenses are really good for sure. And the 49ers kind of just, I don't know, are boringly good. And with Purdy back and, I mean, just a lot of weapons. It'll be a close game for sure. I mean, I don't know which way to go. I mean, whoever makes a critical mistake probably is who's going to lose the game. So this is a crazy matchup for week 1. I mean, but Probably at home,
Yeah,
probably take the Steelers if I had to pick, just because last year I remember the 49ers opening up at the Bears, and it was like one of the Bears' only wins all year. So, um,
yeah, one of three for the future
yeah.
MVP.
So I don't know if I had to pick, probably Steelers. But I mean, this is definitely like a field goal either way game. Like this is going to be a super competitive game.
Yeah, yeah, I think so too. All right, next one is Browns versus Bengals. I think the Bengals are favored by 2.5. This is at Cleveland, which I mean, in the NFL doesn't matter too much unless it's prime time or like special places like like Pittsburgh or I think the Saints home games are beneficial. Chiefs, those top tier teams, etc. But it'll be interesting to see both these teams. We're going to get Watson for a full year. Full off season, taking the first team reps the entire time. Um, is he going to pick up where he left off in Houston, or is he going to kind of play like he did at the end of this past season, which wasn't anything to write home about? And then Bengals, they lost a lot of guys on defense. Their defense, to me, is a big question mark because they were a big part of their success. Obviously, their offense is electric, and they're forming to that style of play in the league. But um, at some point, your defense wins you games. So I think we're going to see a lot. We're going to know about both these teams pretty quick.
Yeah, I mean, if Deshaun Watson returns to the form of when he was in Houston, I mean, the Browns are going to win the division because that guy was
Yeah.
freaking ridiculous. But is he going to be able to do
Really good.
that? And then, like you said, I mean, we know Burrow is going to put up some points. I mean, their offense is ridiculous, but they weren't able to keep a lot of those guys on defense. So how much is that going to affect them? Are they going to be able to just outscore people, or is that going to really cost them a couple games in the end because they aren't able to? Because you just can't outscore everybody in the NFL. So these are two crazy
Yeah.
matchups, very even matchups to open up the season. I mean, 2.5 point spreads aren't that unusual in the NFL, but teams that I don't know are kind of similar. You don't know where you are. Like if the Browns won this game and could get off to a good start, it could completely change their season. So a lot of really tight,
Yeah.
crazy matchups in the first week.
Yeah. I mean, I think that one for both those teams, it could alter both their years. Like it's a huge game right out the gate for both of them. Division matchup. I mean, you're going to know a lot about how much the Bengals are actually lacking on defense. Is Watson, the same caliber player he was a couple years ago? So we'll see. I hope neither team wins, but
Well,
doesn't always
they
happen,
both
but it's
might.
possible. All
Go
right, next
Browns, go
one:
Bengals.
Raiders versus Broncos. Jimmy G in a new home with the Raiders. Is he going to do better than Derek Carr did? Win a couple playoff games? I don't know. Jimmy G's been kind of fortunate. He followed in Brady's footsteps in New England, where pretty much had it made, had the right pieces around him. Then the 49ers, a defense heavy team with some skill guys, like you said, kind of boring offense to run the ball a lot. Always had a good line. Offensive line, I think, is going to be a question for him. I mean, if you've watched the Raiders at all this past year, Derek Carr, a lot of times is running for his dang life back there. Um, and then the Raiders' defense didn't kind of pan out how a lot of people thought they were going to be last year with adding Chandler Jones to go with Crosby on the edge. And yeah, I don't know. That one's going to be interesting. And then Wilson, um, are they going to be a disappointment again? When he went there, they thought for sure they were going to compete for the division, and they had some injuries and stuff, but they didn't look good at all last year. But now they've got Sean Payton as their head coach, um, so we'll see if they turn out to be all right or not. But again, find out about both these teams, both those quarterbacks, pretty early.
Is it in Denver?
I think so. I mean,
If it's in
again,
Denver,
different.
Denver's winning. This is a bounce back season for Russell Wilson. This is
Right.
a redemption tour for the Broncos. So shout out to haters like Matt that this is going to be the Broncos' year to go over 500.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I don't know if they're going over 500, but I like them to win this game. I think
And then that dang
just a
joke, huh?
couple tweaks and getting Russell Wilson maybe back on playing loose and running around like he was in Seattle. See if he can get it going again. I like the Broncos to win this game. I can't take Jimmy G over Russell
Russ.
Wilson in a game, even though Garoppolo probably has the better overall weapons with Adams and um, Josh Jacobs. I just
Jacob.
can't. I
Yeah.
think that Broncos defense is better and that their quarterback is better. So might not be a pretty game. I mean, both teams are trying to figure out a lot, but I like Wilson and the Broncos to win, especially if this game's in Denver.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you. I think Broncos should win too. That home factor again, another spot where it's key. Altitude, fans, etc.
Now, how many
Next
games the
one is
Broncos are
Dolphins.
going to win this year, I don't know, but they're going to win this
Yeah,
one.
yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. I wouldn't bet over that they're over 500, but it could happen.
No.
I would have lost some money
Yeah,
last year, but it's all right,
no
Matt.
betting at
Peace.
all.
Yeah. All right, next one, Dolphins at Chargers. Between the two, Tua, Herbert, who can take their team to the playoffs and win some games? Both are in cutthroat divisions, the AFC East and the AFC West. Chargers, Chiefs, Raiders, Broncos. I mean, Raiders and Broncos are kind of down, but it doesn't matter who's on what team in that division. They always play close games, division matchups, and then you know Dolphins, Jets, Bills, and Patriots. Three of those teams are going to be really good. Patriots, I don't know, but Belichick's their coach, so they'll find a way to win some games. But um, I don't know. I think that this should be a shootout, but I don't know. I think Dolphins might take this one. Just I don't know. When you have Hill and Waddle on the same team, I've got faith that they'll put up more points than the Chargers will.
Yeah, I mean, both teams are going to definitely move the ball. I mean, it's just hard to predict these NFL games without.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to predict them in general, but especially when you haven't seen either team because there's going to be little changes and little differences in the personnel and development. So, I mean, I don't know how you can predict a spread on these games. I mean, I don't know. What is the spread on this? Like 4.5 or something? Four?
Probably less than
Like
that. I bet. Let's see.
probably Chiefs or Chargers
Uh,
by like 3 or 4.
Chargers by 3.
Yeah, I mean, just flip a
So
coin. Just flip a
yeah, I
coin.
mean
All I know is
anything
don't
4
bet on
is a
these
coin.
games. Don't bet on the 3-point
What?
spread games in the NFL. Don't bet on the 3-point
Yeah,
spread
four,
games in the
four and
NFL. It
less
always
is
goes the opposite.
yeah. It's it can get
Yeah.
dicey sometimes, to say the least.
Yeah, those Phantom
All right.
Flags and the CBS extra commercials and the all that stuff. Stay away from the NFL. Bet college football. Don't bet the NFL. Mafia.
Yeah. Yeah. True. All right. Next one is Packers at Bears. I think the no, the Bears are favored by a point by the future NFL MVP Justin Fields, who won 3 games last year. But I do think they'll win. I just don't know about Jordan Love yet. I saw him a little bit last year. Um, I don't know if he can. He definitely can't fill Rodgers' shoes, but I don't know if he can. You know, I don't know if he can be a starter in the NFL. Truthfully, to be honest with you, I just haven't seen anything from him that tells me that he can. But I don't know. I think Fields will use his legs a lot in this game and find a way to win the game.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't seen Love at all. I mean, other than preseason games and like 2 games and Rodgers was hurt and he looked horrible. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe he turns into a great player, but we just don't know yet. And I don't know. I mean, a 1-point spread in the NFL. I mean, good luck. I'd say the Bears at home, maybe. I mean, I know the Packers defense is obviously stacked. Like they have a great defense, but
Yeah, they're
they're not
doing
gonna
this
have
too.
Rodgers to bail them out this year. And he didn't even have any weapons to throw the ball to last year. So I don't know. I would take the Bears.
Yeah. Did you see that thing on Father's Day? Jordan Love said, "Happy Father's Day" to all the Packer fans out there. Like, and they twisted it, implying that the Packers fans were Jordan Love's dad. You know what I mean? Because he said "Happy Father's Day" to him versus them saying it to him. I don't know. It was a
No, I
big
didn't
thing.
see
I
it.
saw it on social media, but you know how that goes. All right, next one: Bills versus Jets. This should be a good game, really good game. We'll kind of figure out if the Jets are for real or not. Obviously, Rodgers, he's a winner. If you got him back in the backfield, you have a chance to win. But they added some more pieces. They got Dalvin Cook, Garrett Wilson's a freaking stud. Their defense has been good the past 2 years or so, but can the Bills pick up where they've left off and add on to it? They got to AFC Championship. I don't know. And then the Jets, are they for real? I don't know who I would take in this one. Truthfully, I think
I'm
it's
taking the Jets.
in. Yeah, I think it's at Jets.
Aaron
I
Rodgers
don't know.
making a huge
I truly.
splash. First game for the Jets. Jets
You
will
think
win.
so?
Yeah, the Bills will probably. I mean, the Bills will finish higher than them in the division, I think, but I think the Jets will win this first game.
Win this
I
one,
mean, if they
yeah,
don't win this game, their first 4 games are ridiculous. Like
yeah.
they got to
I
win
remember.
something. So, and those
Yeah,
phantom flags and stuff, and roughing the pass will be flying in to protect Rodgers. I mean, listen, I watch the NFL, okay, but there's some stuff that's kind of like, bro, this is shady. Like
yeah,
shady. Like what's going on here? There's no pass interference there. I mean, y'all just want the game to stay competitive for the eyeballs. I kid a little,
yeah.
but I like the Jets. I like the
And
Jets.
yeah. The Jets' first 5 games are kind of rough, with the exception of the Patriots. I mean, that's a division game, but they have the Bills, then the Cowboys, then the Patriots, then they have the Chiefs. Broncos should be a winnable game. Then they have the Eagles. That's tough.
Yeah, it's
First
ridiculous. They could be 2-4.
6 games, I
Like
guess.
2-4 could be
Yeah,
decent through that. It's ridiculous.
yeah. They're going to be crawling out the mud by the time they're done with those first 6 games. That's for sure. I know you don't really have a team in the NFL. Is there any team you kind of look forward to watching this year?
Rodgers,
Rodgers
dude, he's gonna have such
or
a
Hendon
better
Hooker?
offensive, such a better offensive roster this year than he's had. I mean, real definitely since
Yeah.
Devontae Adams left, but
Oh
just
yeah.
probably better overall. I mean, Aaron Jones uh, and AJ Dillon were a great tandem that he had the last couple of years, great running backs. But I mean, they just signed Dalvin
And
Cook
now he upgraded to
and
Brees Hall, Dalvin Cook.
Brees
Yeah.
Hall, and then he's got Garrett Wilson, who's better than any receiver he played with in Green Bay except Devontae Adams. And then he brought Lazard with him. Um, I who's their tight end?
Yeah.
Conklin still? I don't know.
I think so.
I mean, they're
Conklin.
that offense is loaded, and then their defense is pretty
Yeah.
solid as well. So I mean, tough division, but I'm looking forward to watching them. I mean, I'm looking forward to watching a lot of the high powered offenses. I want to see if the Dolphins can keep doing what they're doing. I mean, I like watching the Bills. All the teams in the AFC North really. I want to honestly not to even poke at you. Like I just want to see the like the Browns offense kind of move a little bit, and then that way, like every single game in that division is going to be ridiculous. Like if Watson can even like get
Yeah.
to like halfway to where he was, like that division is going to be ruthless. Um,
Yeah,
so,
I placed a bet on the Steelers. Not a very likely winnable bet, but the the payout I couldn't turn down. It was like, I can't remember what the odds were, but I bet on them to win, to sweep their division games. So go 6-0, beat the Bengals, Ravens, and Browns twice each, which obviously a long shot. I couldn't tell you if we've ever done that in my lifetime, but I bet like $25 to win like 7K. So hopefully we can catch
well,
some
you're going to
magic.
know real quick. I mean,
Big magic. Yeah.
but I'm also looking and hoping that Josh Dobbs is starting for the Cardinals. I mean, I'm not expecting him to win a ton of games, but I just want to see him be able to be the starter and at least play a little bit. I mean, it'd be cool.
Yeah, I think last I saw he was going to be their starter. It was between him and some rookie guy they drafted. I can't remember what his name was.
Clayton Tune
Uh,
from Houston.
yeah, yeah. He's actually
So
first on the depth chart, and he's got some chemistry. He's with James Conner again, who they played together in Pittsburgh. Um,
I mean, some
Marquise
decent
Brown.
receivers like Rondell
Yeah,
Moore. I mean, Zach Ertz is there, even though he's kind of probably on the maybe his last year, but he's still a good player. I mean, there's some people
yeah.
there. I mean, they're not going to be a great team, but he could do
Right.
a
Yeah,
little
I mean,
something
their
with them.
defense is atrocious. So, I mean, I think they're
Well,
picked
they're
to
going to play the Rams twice, who aren't great,
be better. Yeah.
and
Seahawks.
then the Seahawks defense isn't what it used to be. They're good, but it's not what it used to be. They're going to score the ball. And then the 49ers is a tough ask, but I would love
Yeah.
Josh to just be the quarterback for like the whole year. It would be amazing because obviously they're
Yeah.
probably tanking for whoever, Caleb Williams. But I would love to watch him just be able to watch him play because this is probably one of his unless he just does amazing. This is probably like one of his last chances, I would say. So it'd be cool to see him play.
Yeah. I mean, I think he definitely has like a backup role kind of solidified for a few more years, but this could kind of get him that Ryan Fitzpatrick type deal where he comes in and gets a chance to compete for the job and hopefully can win it out. It's kind of like what Baker's doing now. Like him and Trask battled it out this summer and he ended up winning the job, kind of trying to get a little redemption, but I mean, Dobbs played for the Titans this past year at the end of the year, and he gave him a good chance to win um, that last game. But yeah, I mean, even if it doesn't work out as a starter and whatnot, but I just he's probably my favorite Tennessee player ever. Partially because I had season tickets during his tenure, and he went to the Steelers, so that's a big thing. We kind of started to get good again when he was there. Um, so yeah, just to see him play again, full season, that would be awesome.
Yeah, it would be really cool because he's just a really good guy and he deserves it. Obviously, he's not the greatest quarterback ever, but he's stuck around and he's very smart and he's going to make the right decision. And he's just better than people would give it credit for. So I hope that he does get
Yeah,
that chance and gets to play a little bit.
yeah, for sure. Alrighty, well, I think that wraps it up for this time. Next week we will dive in to kind of our trends so far, cover the SEC games and games we talked about this week, dive into some next week ones SEC games, and we'll talk about the NFL games from this past week and the future ones also. Once playoff baseball starts, we'll probably dive into that a little bit too. Braves look like they on pace for another World Series, hopefully. Fingers crossed. But yeah. You got anything else?
Nope, you hit it, boss.
Alrighty. Well, we appreciate you all listening. Yeah, that's right. Go Balls, Rocky Top. Tune in next time.